We have a president who was elected after trafficking in barely cloaked racial animus. And so we're seeing a lot of other people who are in many ways mimicking this type of language.
This kind of stuff is a direct byproduct of how Donald Trump behaves, the things that he has said, the things that he does not condemn.
And we have to stop pretending that this president has nothing to do with it, that he's not emboldening racist and racism and giving them a platform and making it okay.
Richard Goodstein is a lawyer who advised both of Hillary Clinton's presidential campaigns. He joins us tonight. Richard, I don't begrudge any political party or its surrogates in the media, the opportunity to grab an advantage when you see one. But on the subject of the tweets, which no normal person would defend, they're awful. Why the impulse to immediately make it a partisan political issue when there's a human message in this conversation, which is don't attack people on the basis of their race?
Right.
Like, it's that simple. Why the impulse to make it partisan?
Well, certainly what Roseanne Barr did was pathetic, not just to say it, but then to blame it on ambient. And remember, she also said it was Memorial Day. I mean, it was, and this is somebody who had said the exact same thing about Susan Rice, who had basically defended the whole Seth Rist. I mean,
whatever.
She's gone down one rabbit hole.
You don't need to convince me the tweet was bad. I'm there already.
Well, no, actually, there are people I suspect who actually are, kind of joining to her defense, right? Oh, this is somehow her First Amendment rights are being infringed.
I think, but I'm not making that. What I'm saying is, look, for most of my adult life, the senior Democrat in the United States Senate was a former Klan recruiter, okay? Robert Byrd. A lot of things named after Robert Byrd. I'm not even attacking Robert Byrd. He apologized. But, let's get a little proportion here. The outrage is selective. I'm not defending the Roseanne crap, but I also think when people are jumping up and down and being like, actually, Trump did this, it's purely political. Let's just be honest.
Yeah, so actually I think that people who don't subscribe to your view believe the following, that Donald Trump has given license to people by saying they're good Nazis, by mocking handicapped people, by basically, the list is
mocking
endless.
Handicapped
oh, sure. Remember he went like this about that New York Times reporter?
Was he mocking all handicapped people?
He was mocking that guy. That's pathetic. That may be the single most pathetic thing that he's done. And he's talked about Mexicans being racist. Look, the list is on and on. The fact of the matter is, though, when Donald Trump does that, and people say, well, he won, so his staff can go, well, I can mimic people. I can make fun of John McCain who's dying. I can, that's the problem. Then so people who are supporters think at his rallies, you've heard people who covered his rally said these people were lovely, and then the rally would start, and they would say the most anti-Semitic, anti-female.
So look, I've been on television for 20 years through Democrat and Republican administrations, and the volume and the nastiness, the hate mail I received remains pretty much constant. I didn't blame Obama for the attacks or the death threats I got 5 years. I mean, let's just be totally real here. It's not. Look, I understand you don't like Trump, but this is a much larger question, and part of the question is, do people who are engaging in racism, like Al Sharpton, have the right to lecture the rest of us about racism? Do they? Is Al Sharpton the spokesman you want against racism?
No,
really?
he's not.
Oh, okay.
I agree with you. But I do think that it is undeniable that the fact that Donald Trump spews what he did on the campaign trail and as president to talk about good Nazis is something that sends a signal like, I basically am drawing sucker from these people. And it's why he tweets about every stupid thing under the sun. NFL players kneeling, and he can't bring himself to be critical.
What you're trying to do
Barr.
is draw me into defending every dumb Trump tweet, which I have no interest in doing. I want to talk about the universal principles here, okay? So we're against racism, I hope. I certainly am. We do a lot of shows on it.
Of course.
Is it wrong to discriminate against people on the basis of their skin color?
Well, so that's a different. You're talking about affirmative action.
No, I'm actually talking about racism. Is it wrong to discriminate against people on the basis of their skin color? And if it's not, then why do we care what Roseanne said? But if it is, I understand why we're upset.
Right.
Because you shouldn't attack people on the basis of immutable characteristics.
Right.
Do you agree with that?
I think that Roseanne Barr and people like her who talk about black people as apes are wrong.
I agree with that completely. I think it's disgusting. But what's the principle? Is it wrong to discriminate against someone on the basis of his skin color, to hold him back, to penalize him on the basis of his skin? It's a really simple question. Can you answer it?
Of course, but
and again,
you're acting like somehow slavery didn't happen.
I'm not saying that.
Well, that's the intimation of what you're getting at. I understand.
Why would it? Please.
Because that's what you're getting at.
No, I'm not getting at that. I'm a very straightforward person. I say what I mean. And please don't attack me. I'm asking you about a principle.
Right.
Which is it wrong to hurt people, to hold them back, deny them things they would otherwise get because of their race? It's a really simple question, yes or no.
I agree that people should not be discriminated against.
Please answer the question.
I'm saying they should not be discriminated against their race, but we don't have a colorblind society. Eric Holder and other black cabinet officials have trouble hailing a taxi cab to go to certain areas of Northwest Washington.
By the way, I'm not denying that. I'm merely saying, is it wrong to practice racism against people? Oh, it is?
Yes.
So you would say it's totally wrong to say to a child, because of your skin color, we're holding you back. There's a massive lawsuit against Harvard right now by Asian students who have basically proven that Harvard didn't let them in because of their race.
Right.
Is that okay with you?
Jews used to be subjected to the exact same thing.
And it was wrong.
Right.
But liberals support it now.
Right.
So those people lecture me about racism. Are you joking?
The Harvard argument is that there's a certain virtue in diversity.
Oh, there's a virtue in discrimination.
Because diversity. You call it what you want.
No, I'm not. I'm calling it what it is. Yeah. Because we both agreed that penalizing people on the basis of their race is immoral. You agreed with that. And yet it's happening right now with the full support of liberals, the same ones who are lecturing the rest of us about racism.
Right.
It's too much. Do you understand?
And I'm saying there's a quilt involved, and yes, discriminating against people on the basis of their skin color is wrong.
Let's stop it.
Basically,
how about that?
But people were held back for hundreds of years, and to basically act like that didn't happen is wrong too.
But I'm not acting like it didn't happen.
I'm not saying you
I think it's the central sin of America.
Yeah.
I think it's our original sin. I think it's terrible. But I don't think that racism is okay, and liberals do.
Right.
And I just want to be clear, and I want our viewers to understand that is the official position of the Democratic Party, is that hurting people on the basis of their race is A-okay.
No. The official position of the Democratic Party is that we have to take cognizance of the fact that what happened for 200 years, and if we act like it didn't happen, and that somehow or other we reach a point in life that we just act like skin color doesn't matter, that is basically ignoring the obvious.
So the Chinese kid who arrived here 20 minutes ago suffers for that because of his race.
No question.
And that's okay with the Democrats. The same ones giving us lectures during their anti-racism summits.
Yeah. Yeah, as I said, I think what the Chinese students are arguing about at Harvard has merit, as it did for the Jews.
Right, but it's not a big deal because they're Chinese. So
not in the least. I'm with them. Yeah.
I hope so. I am. Thank you, Richard.
Good
to see you.
Sure.